Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm happy to stand in support of this budget. Just hearing the remarks from the MLA from Delta
So this is
North,
Maple
I
Ridge,
almost
which,
wonder if I'm in the same
from my
province as what
understanding,
he's
if I
talking about,
remember
and hopefully
correctly,
as we're
has
going through
always
this, we will
has
go
always
to
been a
look at
little
those,
conservative. And I'm not saying people shouldn't be conservative and responsible. Obviously not, right? We want that. The more we can encourage that in our society, you know, the healthier we'll be, right? But when we make it difficult for people to the point where, you know, they start shutting down and rebelling, and it multiplies in numbers, you know, and then you become the, you know, you do that engineering of where, you know, we convince the collective that everybody's entitled to something one way or another, right? But we're all living in the poverty of the mind, right? Because we do.
That first moved here in Fraser Valley and other places in British Columbia that spent much time clearing the forests, whether it be for cattle or for agriculture, whatever it may be. It takes sacrifice, but they have a mind to a crop down the road. And I really believe that this right here is, yes, you know, it would be nice to be more flush, but I believe that the choices that we're making will actually lead to tremendous productivity as the time progresses. And I believe that we need to live within our means. Because if we do that, then we will have
so they're
more
just
for tomorrow.
rounding off their opinions on this budget as a whole, right? They haven't gotten into the debate of the budget, and if they are, again, they're going to be doing half of them in the committee rooms that you won't see. So, you know,
1990s, 1/3.
I don't know how many days I can do this because it takes a long time to upload these things, but it definitely allows me an opportunity to, you know, give you my point of view, whether you agree with it or not. You know, it all depends on your life experiences. I mean, obviously, I speak a lot on what my life experience has been and the result of those experiences, right, in combination of general knowledge that I might have. Where, you know, for a lot of people, their life experiences are, you know, 1,000 times better than whatever I could have provided for my kids. So they're not going to see it from my point of view.
We are hurting our children. We are hurting our grandchildren. We are hurting ourselves, and it doesn't take very long for that to impact us. Drastic action had to be taken, and there was. The 1990s in Canada, we're not talking about British Columbia, let's talk about the early 90s.
And that's another reason why I stopped listening to this for a while, because okay, in 2001, it was all right to listen. Well, you know, 1999 when you guys were in the house, right? And then it, you know, got into, well, they were, so what, 2004 or 5? It's every 3 years, right? I think it's every 3 years they go up, right? And I think it's municipalities every 4, or vice versa. So anyway, you know, and then it's 2005 and they're still going on, oh, well, in 1999, blah, blah, blah. Right? Well, we're in 2012. Drop the 1999. We know about the fast cat ferries. I know if I would have been premier, I would have made those things into restaurants, okay? You know, and they'd be booming today. Or children's, like a charity where, you know, you have, like on the island there in Victoria with the boat, with the, you know, you go on the boat and they have little pools where the children can actually see the starfish. And I would have turned one of those fast cats into something like that, you know, and maybe rented it out to groups to go in there and, you know, make movies or something, right? And the other one could have been a restaurant and like a dance joint, right? You know, boogie woogie in the middle of the night under the stars with the light, right? So that's what I would have done as a premier with those fast cats. But 12 years later, they're still saying 1999? Like, get over it, you know? You expect everybody else to get over their shit. You need to get over your shit, right? Bring in some new information. If people can take the time to listen, then at least they want to hear some new information, not old information.
So many places around the world, we actually are quite.
My dad's sitting at the table listening to this. Brings him back to the old days. You can blame him for me being a pest in the house, because if it wasn't for him needling me on, I tell you, I wouldn't be here today, right? You know. Only because he worked there, and he, you know, he used to tell me all the stories, right?
Where they are turning
So now I know. And I used to play there too. Maybe that might have something to do with it, because as a kid, I used to run around wild just like I did up at the ocean, right? I'd be running around up there by the waterfall where the ice glacier smoothed over the rock, and they put a little waterfall with a memorial on that, this ice glacier age rock, right?
In the 1990s. The nation,
Feed the ducks in Beacon Hill Park.
In the 1990s, had tens of thousands of people that
go off into on Dallas Road, up along the water breaker, right to the very end. 9 years old, running around the water breaker. And then when I'd be done with that, I'd go into the provincial buildings, and it was free in those days. I'd run around in there for hours, all day long, run around the provincial museum by myself or my friends. I had a girlfriend, right? We used to run around there all the time. In the stand, you go into the wax museum part, and you'd stand and you wouldn't move, right? People would walk by and you'd pretend you were like some plastic figurine, right? And they'd be looking at you. Just kids stuff, right? Now you have to pay.
Here's one thing, is that we have a surplus projected for next year. It's a thin one, but it's a surplus nevertheless. And
But yeah, no, that's what they should have done with one of those fast cat ferries. They should have turned it into a community access, floating resort, right? Where, people could have, they're, like I say, they could have brought groups of kids in there and gone to a different part of the boat and, could have role played some sort of, scene that they wrote in the classroom, talking about, going to some country to do something good. I think they're just sitting there now and rusting away. They were supposed to be sold off, but whoever bought them at a fraction of the cost, and I still think they're still sitting in the harbor. Are not those things still sitting in the harbor?
The ratings. And that's worked well for us.
That might be something to look up to see where the fast cat ferries are.
And we've met the forecast, except for that 1 year. And we have confidence. We have
even if you make one boat charity, the other boat business, and if they would have done that 10 years ago, it'd probably be flourishing today. Hey?
Well, what does that mean? Well, with the budget, with the deficit we have, or the debt we have right now, it would mean this: if you add about a 2% differential to the debt servicing charges, it would equal to about $750 million to a little over $1 billion extra. That's the difference of having
what Vancouver needs to do.
Credit rating as opposed to having
if these fast cat ferries would have kind of manifested in what I just suggested, is instead of trying to cater to the upper elite, where it's like $600 a plate for food and some fine wine, and would have created an environment where it was affordable not only for families, but just for people in general. And then establish it as like a hub, right? Where, again, with the charity aspect of it, it would have drawn in groups of individuals and schools and, recreation centers and that type of thing, bringing groups of children. But the business end of it would have had to been affordable. It couldn't have been isolated to just the elite. And that's part of the problem with the downtown core, is you've got this, concentration of elitism, where it's kind of pushing out, again, gentrification of the neighborhood. The poorer you are, the faster you're going to get pushed out. So, that's something to think about.
We've also agreed to for the next couple of years. So, and also the ministers have a further 10% reduction of their ministerial salary if there's a debt. So we're seeing a decrease there also. So now I am a public school teacher.
Yeah.
I've been for about a decade and a half.
Yeah.
And
and here's a suggestion my dad just said. They could have taken one of those boats and made it into an educational, initiative where the boat itself was actually traveling through the pass. Well, certain parts of it, not too much, right? But just enough to give the kids, a half a day of floating around in the ocean, right? That is something else to consider. That could have been done as well, right? A floating school. And then on the other end, when it docks, You know, it could have been a transport home by bus.
Now,
You know, depending on, it doesn't have to be far, right? But that is something to think about.
we as teachers have seen about a 16% increase, while other public sector unions have not seen anything. So the last time that there was a negotiated settlement was with the BC Liberal government in 2006. There has not been. All the others have been back to work legislation. And also something that happened in the last negotiation was that it reduced the number of categories for a teacher to reach their max from 12 steps or 12 years to 10 steps. And that made a significant difference in the increase of salary for many teachers, including myself. I saw thousands of dollars more just because of the increase. But under the NDP government, when they're in power, as teachers, we saw 0.00% increases, 0.05 increase, and a 1% increase. This is what we saw.
Okay, so we're going back into
BC
1999.
Liberals. So I believe that teachers have fared much better under the BC
That's,
Liberals.
I don't even
under
get
the
my
NDP.
daughter's report card. That's not true. They're on strike. It's just not being vocal
why
about
I
it. They're not in the
BC
news, and
Liberal.
you know, it's not on TV. It's not in the newspaper. But my daughter is not receiving a
campaigned against
report
the BC
card. I'm
Liberals.
getting emails in regards to her grade. I'm getting a report card with her days of absence, but I'm not getting a report card in terms of her progress. And, you know, I'm proud to say my daughter is in grade 10 science, and she pulled in 73%. And she's been out of school for, you know, several years under a homeschool concept basis. And for a girl to go into a class that she knows nothing about per se and pull in 73%, I'm pretty proud. But at the end of the day, I had to get that information through my email. So teachers are not happy. They're just not squawking on about it enough right now. Okay?
The difference for a family of four making $70,000 is about $2,000 a year now, as opposed to under the
Maybe it's because they know it's going to be a landslide no matter what the Liberal government wants to do anyway. So, you know, they've sucked it up, Buttercup. You know, they've swallowed their bitter pill, and they're, you know, acting out in areas where, you know, it's safe to do, right? It's like kids coming home and, you know, picking on their mom, and then the fight breaks out. It's because they're frustrated with their life out in the room, you know, outside the house, right? And then they come home and they take it out on the ones closest that they love, right? It's not because they're trying to hurt you. It's just because they feel safe, right? So, you know, this not giving out grades on report cards, you know, is a safe valve to blow off some steam that's brewing right now. This is brewing.
And it's a very, you know, substantial chunk of change. Now, under the NDP, we had the highest marginal tax rate in Canada. They had a small business tax at one point that was 9%. Now, there are 1 million people in British Columbia that are in small business. Either they're owners or they work for small businesses.
Yeah, and they're starting to drop off like flies by not paying their taxes. And the Liberal government needs to take responsibility for that, okay? Because they're instigating laws that are putting these people into a position where they feel that they can't. Some of them just can't. They're too afraid to. So what does that tell you?
Profits for himself that he can use for either expanding his business, for be able to
No,
improve his
they're going to be
lifestyle,
the
or to
next
hire new
generation
employees.
stepping in line behind the Americans that are going to end up homeless at the rate that we're on the path and at the rate that we're going, under the poverty of the mind mentality, in addition to the entitlement mentality, because there is a difference between the two.
Unfortunately, they did not make not any of their budget targets. Not one, which was what we didn't make, but none of their budget targets. Now, because of the poor fiscal management